Okay, let's talk about dual relationships. A dual relationship is a situation that occurs when your client also plays another role in your life, like your neighbor or your child's teacher or your sister-in-law. These relationships require very, very clear communication and firm boundaries. It's extremely common, especially now as a student, for you to be working on friends and family. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it is important to understand that a client is not your friend. A client is not your friend. And if you can avoid turning a professional relationship into a dual relationship, I want to highly encourage you to avoid it. Please note that in a friend, there's mutual respect and trust and enjoyment of each other, and there's reciprocity. And you all are enjoying each other's company because you agree to hang out together and you enjoy it. In a therapeutic relationship, there is respect and trust and, all of those same things. However, it is not a friendship because you are charging for your time and your client is submitting to your authority in the room. And, you don't charge your friends to go hang out and see a movie. You don't charge your friend to sit down and listen to, their struggles at work or at home. I can't make it any more clear than that. A friend is, your client is not your friend. And what happens if you have a client that you create a friendship with them? I'm not saying that you don't enjoy your clients. You may really enjoy your clients, and that's great. You can look forward to that hour when you're treating them. But you should not begin to socialize with them outside of the professional relationship because it does create a lot of strain. Most notably, it typically leads to them asking for special favors, special requests, special scheduling, special pricing, special understanding, and it can become quite blurry. So please try and you don't necessarily have to avoid getting into a relationship that begins as a dual relationship. In that scenario, you simply have to have very clear boundaries. When I'm your massage therapist, we're going to talk about massage. We're not going to talk about my child's grades. But if you have a professional relationship, make sure you have firm enough boundaries that you don't allow it to become a dual relationship. Let's talk about transference and countertransference. Transference is a psychological term that describes a situation where a client may transfer their feelings, thoughts, and behavior that they have for another person in their life onto the therapist. So the classic psychological model typically points to a child having a negative experience with a parent, and there's something about you that reminds them of their parent, and it could be anything. It could be an inflection in your voice, it could be your demeanor, it could be a gesture, but something triggers that relationship for them, and they unconsciously begin to transfer the feelings that they have for this person onto you, and it changes the therapeutics relationship significantly. So this can happen in reverse, where the therapist transfers feelings, thoughts, and behaviors onto the client, and we call that countertransference. It doesn't always have to be bad. I like to give the example of a former student who was from another country, was far from home. She had a little brother that she loved. So it just happened that she picked up a client who reminded her very, very much of her little brother. And so she felt a great deal of affection toward this client and recognized that she was dealing with some countertransference. So she actually spoke with me about it, and I reminded her that it doesn't mean that you have to terminate the relationship as long as you are able to maintain your professional boundaries. So years later, I ran into this former student, and I asked about that particular client, and she stated that she had to terminate the relationship and refer him to another therapist. And when I asked what happened, she said that her client came in one day for his regular massage treatment and expressed to her that he had dropped out of college. And she just absolutely lost it. She was furious. She realized that she was yelling at her client about his future, about commitment, about following through with your obligations, and demanding that he return to school and re-enroll and complete his degree. And then she realized that she no longer had control of her professional relationship. So she did the right thing at that point by referring him out. I thought it was a great, warm, and loving example of countertransference, is that it was motivated out of all good feelings. It was not a I resent this person scenario. So it can happen, positive or negative. It does not have to be a bad experience if you are excellent at maintaining your boundaries. And if it does become a situation where you're no longer able to maintain those boundaries, then the best thing you can do is just refer them to another therapist. Okay, how do you recognize this? How do you know that your client is dealing with transference? It can be extremely difficult to recognize. And I don't want you to put too much value or too little value on some of these clues that I've listed on this slide. I've listed things like the client feels like they don't want the massage to ever end. Maybe the client doesn't want to leave the office. Their massage ended at 10:30, now it's 11 o'clock, now it's 12:15, and they're still sitting and chatting. The client sees the massage therapist outside of the office and wants to follow them, wants to go hang out with them. Or on the other aspect of it, maybe your client brings you flowers. Maybe they are telling you about personal problems. Maybe you're being asked to make exceptions in scheduling or payment. Maybe they're inviting you out socially to go to a craft show or a movie. Maybe they're asking you for a date. All of these would be excellent indications that they may be dealing with transference. Incidentally, I don't have a slide here for this topic, but in Virginia, it is illegal to date your clients. You can actually lose your massage license if you date your clients. And in fact, if you find yourself attracted to one of your clients and you would like to begin a dating relationship with them, you cannot date them for 6 months after you stop seeing them professionally. 6 months. You cannot go have coffee with them. Okay? All right? And the idea is to protect both the therapist and the client from the issue of transference. All right. Lastly, I want to talk about inappropriate behavior and how to terminate a session. I want you to note that inappropriate behavior in a massage treatment room is somewhat rare, largely because people are very concerned about ending up in court and having charges pressed against them. I can answer more questions about this in person when we meet in class. But I do want you to know that it does occur, although it's not an everyday experience in a massage setting. And I would love to hear your thoughts about this, because I would love to be able to allay some of your fears. The important thing is that if you find yourself in a situation where someone is being inappropriate, you need to have a firm grasp on how to address it. And you need to really become comfortable with how to address it before it occurs so that you can handle it appropriately. So the first thing you would do is completely remove your hands from the client and step back away from the table so that you are out of arm's reach. You have the option at that point to ask them to clarify their behavior, but if you completely understood and there's no doubt in your mind that they were being inappropriate, you certainly do not have to ask them at all. Second, you tell the client the massage is over, they should get dressed, and they should leave the room. You do not discuss with them how inappropriate their behavior was while they're lying on the table. You can wait outside the room, and when the client comes out, you can explain to them why their massage was being terminated, but you don't have to. Believe me, I'm sure that they know what they did wrong. If you feel unsafe, or if the situation was extreme, once you say the massage is over, get dressed, and you step out of the room, you should put yourself in a safe place. You can lock yourself in another room. You can go into the office next door if you are alone. You can put yourself around other people. If you're alone, you can, again, lock yourself into a room, and you can actually call the police. So the important thing is that you make sure you are safe. And then lastly, you want to document the events that led to your decision to terminate the session. And when I say document, I mean I'm talking you need to write War and Peace down in those treatment notes. Make sure to record statements verbatim. Describe the situation in great detail. That information could be used if the situation becomes legal, and if they accuse you of libel. And then lastly, if you feel fearful after the whole thing is over and this person has completely left your office and you're still feeling fearful, then it would be recommended that you actually file a police report so there's something recorded. I don't like to end the lecture on that note because I don't want any of you all to feel concerned. I want you to know that it is extremely rare that this would happen. However, I would love to talk to you all more in class when we meet and answer any questions you have about this. All right. Thanks.